So for the first review after Star Wars month, we're back to regularly scheduled programming with Haslab Omega Prime. Now, this is going to be two parts, because this would be like an hour and some review if I did both of these figures in one review. I'm just going to say that right now. So, first video is going to be Optimus, second one is going to be Magnus, and then the Ultra Prime, because you need Magnus to do the Ultra Prime combo. So we're mostly going to talk about Optimus first. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Going to talk about them. We're going to start in the alt modes for them because it's a little bit easy, especially with him because he has so much to do with the robot chunks. Magnus is still pretty cool nonetheless. Finally got here, but before we even get into the robots, we got to talk about the box because the box is kind of interesting. And there's also a lot of stuff in said box still that you don't really need for these guys to function on their own. So let's get into that, shall we? So the box. Yes, we have to hold the camera to do this because it is big. There's the image, Transformers, Haslab, see little blue bolts down there. Looks pretty cool. If we then flip it down, it's going to hit everything. This thing is absolutely massive, by the way. Like, absolutely titanic. It's upside down. I put them all in upside down. But there's 3 or 4 boxes within said box. Just push it back here. You get the first box in there, so there's 4 boxes individual. So you get the first box is the stands, blue bolts, and the Titan Master. This smaller box here is the sword thing. What's it called? The something spear? I don't remember. This one is Optimus. This one is Ultra Magnus. Magnus comes in the smaller box because he is, by technicality, shorter. Now, we're not going to be talking about these bottom ones because, well, I already have the figures out. But these two have items in them, particularly this one. So within your nice cardboard box, once you pull it out, you get instructions. Terrible instructions. They're always bad. And then you get stand components, which we're going to put together. So to talk about the stands first, just for 2 seconds, these are the big stands. They were one of the things that was, I think this was the last goal. They're cool. I mean, they're a little big. They're not going to fit on my shelf, but they're nice. They can combine into a road, if you like. Obviously, both stands being there is a little crazy. And they have these little chunks that you can add on. I don't know why I'm forgetting how I... Oh, there it is. It's on the bottom. You just do this. They just go and... Basically, it's a little adapter. They're cool. And then you get this little Titan Master, which doesn't really do much. He's kind of going to be necessary for the Optimus part of the review. But just to kind of get this out of the way, because this is the stuff no one really cares about. We'll talk about the sword when we get to Omega Prime, but I just wanted to show the stands first, because they're kind of nothing, really. So now, to get into the real meat and potatoes of this review, this is Optimus Prime from RID, and he's a fire truck, a pretty big one. This is like crazy size, by the way. Here it is compared to the part. This guy, I said I didn't know where he was. I accidentally found it. I was doing some cleaning, moving some boxes. There's this one box I had that was just full of like my Mega Block stuff from when I was a kid, all the Halo and Call of Duty stuff, and I poured it into another container. And out came that, and I went, no way. What are the chances I find it the day after I get this Haslab? I know this review is going to be going up a bit. After that's going to be going up on Sunday. But this is still an insanely good truck mode. Just looking at it, it's awesome. Here's the little Titan guy you've seen in the stand. He actually does have some compatibility here, as there's a little seat over here for him. That's about all he does. And I'll put him in the bucket, which we'll talk about. But the truck mode looks great. Very red, very cool. Very large. This thing has some heft to it. This thing doesn't even feel like it's a Commander class figure. I think most people know it's a Commander class figure. This is Commander class. They could have just outright done this as a Commander class, I feel like. They could have done it. They just said, you know what? You want Magnus too, clearly, because there's no reason not to have Magnus. And Magnus on his own, he wouldn't have sold. I know he wouldn't have. He would have, because he's an Optimus Prime and a fire truck. And he has a super mode. I think he would have sold perfectly. I think probably one of the better sellers. But Magnus would have never sold because he's just... We'll talk about it. It's not the figure's fault, but it's just the design's fault, really. He's compromised, similar to how a Power Rangers Megazord could be compromised, like a 6th Ranger one. just due to combinations and stuff. That's what I'm going to compare that to. As far as the truck goes, looks nice. As you can see, some Cybertronian writing. The wheels are not rubber like the original. Good thing, because if you noticed, mine doesn't have wheels or a back end, because I got it at a garage sale when I was 6. Yeah, so this guy does that as well. For those who don't know about this guy, the entire back section here, starting right here at this like perfectly squared off area, this little part comes off down here. So it's like this hinge and then this little squared off area. It's just 66% of the truck mode's gone. It's super mode parts. It's super mode parts. It's a base mode. I'm not doing the base mode. I'm just going to say that right now because it's dumb. Nobody's going to do it. Nobody's doing the base mode. Nobody is. It's just kind of a cool little truck to have. And again, the ladder's really neat as well. It's heavily ratcheted. It does extend. I will say that. It's very hard to get it to extend, but it does extend. And it also wouldn't be on camera if I did do it. But it does extend quite far. And as mentioned, there is a bucket. So if you did want to put this little guy up in there, you can do that. So that's cool. There's also little water cannons at the front, which is neat. And this is the I'm going to throw in here just because we're almost done with the alt mode. The weapon stores down here. I had to look it up. Thank you, Pia, for that, because I was trying to figure out where it's stored because I was just putting it in one of the random ports on the figure. It just goes down here and it acts as another wheel, so that's cool. I like that. It rolls well. It's a nice big truck. Nothing wrong with that. But essentially, that is the majority of the truck mode. It's a very cool truck mode. There's missiles up here, but that's more for another mode, which we'll get to. So, to transform them, there's actually a little bit of a stress mark over here, you might see. Let's get into that. So to do the transformation, it's a little bit interesting. So, what I'd recommend doing, first and foremost, come down here to these sections here and undo them. Because once you undo that, it allows you just to remove that section. Because you have to get these sections off, which you have to open up this panel to do. Because there's a little bit of a peg right there. Goes into a slot. You gotta do that. If you don't do that, let's just say you could break that, which isn't very good for the figure, obviously. Because I have seen a lot of people do it. Essentially, after that, you get the fire truck mode here, which has its own problems. First and foremost, remove the gun. The gun slots in just to inform. There's some tabs at the bottom. It slots into that little groove. From there, take this section, move it out of the way. And we're going to take these and fold them down for the time being because they can fall off and go flying. It happened to me once, and I don't really want that to happen again. So, to kind of unlock the transformation points, you're going to need to take these little silver things here that go over the wheels. For some reason, they covered them. I guess just for space. I don't know. They really didn't have to make tips as thick as they did, honestly. They could have just sculpted that. But you get this here, and then come to the front and undo this, unfurl it, and boom, there you go. Rotate the legs like so. Come around to the back. For some reason, this one always likes to give me trouble. Undo that, and then fold out the heel. Do the same on this side. This one comes off easy compared to the other one. And then, once you do that, take your arms, fold them in like so. Fold this open. Fold out your head. Fold that back closed. Take these little lights, fold them up. And this is the part that a lot of people actually have an issue with. If you've seen my short, you have to take this apart. If you don't want, this has a chance of cracking. The friction here is too much. What I ended up doing is filing it down, but also I left it unscrewed a bit. So if you notice when it gets to a certain point, it kind of cracks a little more. It's because I left the screws not fully tightened. For the arms, you're just going to pull them down like so. And then when you do that, it also extends the fists, which is a nice thing, just to show it because we didn't see it. when I did it, you gotta just get a good grip on it, do that, and it will click into place once you have it. And then obviously we gotta do a boost up because this is getting a little tall. And so here we have Optimus in his robot mode, which looks pretty good. I mean, how does it stack up to this guy, the original? Like I said, I have mine. Mine's actually in, like, semi-good shape compared to ones I have seen. Look at the chrome on my chest. Like, it's a little bit weird looking in spots, but it's pretty good. Like, I've seen, like, completely decimated chrome. Mine looks really good compared to some of the ones I've seen, but there's a bit of yellowing on the hips and stuff. That's besides the point. We'll never review this guy because he's incomplete, and I don't really feel like completing him because I have this guy now. As far as it goes, design-wise, looks pretty similar. Mine doesn't have a backpack, so that's kind of some missing aspects over the shoulders, but otherwise, pretty good. The chest, I've always heard people complain, is too far apart. It is a little far apart, but I understand why. It's to facilitate the combining gimmick. There's a lot of things this guy does a little differently. There is some nice detailing. He is very, very thick in the hips, though, which was necessary for the combined form, you'd think, which we'll get to that. Don't worry. We'll talk about some certain aspects that kind of bother me, but the robot itself, I think, looks good. They gave it the chrome eyes, similar to the kind of, actually, the original doesn't. The original says painted gold, I think. Actually, no, it is chrome-ish. I'm not sure. They look chromy. It's just so old, I can't really tell. But the chrome eyes on this guy look good. I wish we could have chrome eyes more often, because they look so good. Every single head in this form has chrome eyes, like, in this set. Looks phenomenal. Like, they're so cool. Chrome is really a lost art. People kind of said for the chrome chest. I honestly would prefer the plastic. I'm not going to lie. I'm in the other camp. It's cool, but I feel like it's a little too gaudy. And again, has the issues. It could chip. It's a pretty big piece of the figure to chip. And there's a lot of movement that goes on with the chest. So it makes sense for them to just do plastic and paint. I will not lie to you. I think that this is a pretty solid looking figure. Looking at the back here, it looks like that. Taking a look at the arms, they look pretty alright, I guess. The legs, as I mentioned, big bulky things with some relatively cool shin details. And the chest is a little bit far apart for some people's takes. But that head is genuinely beautiful. It's not identical to this guy, but it looks pretty close. It's close enough in my books. It's a little different. I've seen people say, oh, it needs to be... It doesn't need to be the exact same. It's a different figure from the original. It's allowed to look a little different, because if it looked the same, people would be like, oh, you might as well just re-release the original. That's my whole thing with that. The gun here is this little itty-bitty pistol, which has this wheel, which is nice. Put them in the hand. Do that. It is blast effect compatible. Looks good. The articulation on this part of the figure is pretty solid. Ball joint in the head. Forward and back. Outward at the shoulder, but in two different positions. So there's one here and one here. So he has maximum shoulder range. You can kind of give him an ab crunch if you pull up here. So that's kind of nice if you want to give him that. There is a swivel. His hips are massive, though, as I mentioned. Forward, back, outward, knee joint. The lag joints are really tight ratchets. They kind of have to be, though, because he's a big, big guy when he's all combined up. And the feet are on ball joints, so they have a good bit of motion down there. There's a lot of other things you can do. There's a couple other modes I know that you can pull, which, again, I don't really want to show because I feel like most people don't really care. Again, that's just me. I'm sure they're out there. I just don't really care to do them. But this is a cool figure nonetheless. Now we got to do the combination, which is quite tall. Quite tall. This is going to get a little iffy to do on camera. So the first thing you're going to want to do is rip apart the trailer. Now, I already ripped off those other bits as you've seen earlier. There's other ways you can do it, but that's how I personally do it. You're going to basically come to the ladder section, and you're just going to rip the ladder off. This section here, put it off to the side for now. These are the feet sections. You're going to rip them in half, you're going to flip this section out, you're going to flip this section out, come down to the bottom, and flip out the toe, and then flip down the wheels like this. Do the same for the other side with no differences, or literally no differences. This is part of the other form. You can have the big missile pod shoulders if you'd like. For the Prime himself, take the heels, flip them away, take that, do that. Take his gun. His gun actually can stow on the back. There's little pegs there, as you can see, and there is some peg holes. So it just goes on like that. We're also going to just flip away the head now, because you got to flip it away for the combo, which I know people are against. I feel like there's no way to do it. The head might feel a little supersized otherwise. So we're going to take the feet, and they're going to clip in to some clips at the bottom, which are right here. And then you're going to use the shin and peg it into this port here. Which, again, sometimes easier said than done, because the feet, as I mentioned, are on ball joints. They like to move a bit. And we're going to put that there. That's going to boost. So we're also going to do one more thing to this Prime, which is we're going to pull up the torso. And on the back, there's this kind of clip section you might see there. And you're just going to make sure that that's in place. So that keeps it boosted to the proper level that it needs to be boosted to in order to do the combination. Now, from here, it's arm time. So you're going to take these components here. Now, they are pegged in, so unpeg the cube-like component from these flat ones. These flat components are shoulder pads, and there's 2 peg holes on them. Put it in the farthest back peg hole, and then they do have a tab. So there's a tab hole there, and then there's a tab here, which just goes on like so. And then you're going to take the hands. So the hands, if you want to put them on in a fun way, put them on the side like that using these double holes. And then there's 2 pegs on the wrist. This is what I call the fun way, because you get to flip them around over the robot hands. Open up these side components, flip them forward, flip them back, flip down that panel. I love how the hands work for both combinations. I think it's just so fun. And now we get to what I consider the worst part, and this is going to be awesome to do on camera. I already struggle to do it most of the time off of camera. We're going to take this component with the ladder and head. Flip out this section here, and then take the ladder, and it's going to stay up. You're going to take this and fold it down and around. We're going to take the head, put it into place. And this has multiple connection points. So there's these little teeth, which are out of focus. These teeth go into the holes on the chest. Then under here, there's some slots that go into some pegs up here. And then there's some clamps that go onto the backpack. This is fun. So usually what I do here is I start with the chest pegs. The chest clips are the big ones. And then the middle ones are the easiest to get on. And the hardest one, honestly, is the backpack. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I took it apart and it caused them to be a bit harder, but they don't like to go on nearly as easily as I feel like they should. And once that's all done, here we have the big man, which is quite large. He is the size of Jetfire, Prestige Jetfire. And he is very, very massive, as you can see. Looking at that, very cool. The chrome on the little horns are awesome. There's a lot to this thing. I know the camera's panning down. That's just this stupid tripod, which I barely break out. It's only for these really tall reviews, which I'm going to need to break this out a lot for this series, aren't I? He looks really cool. Looking at the arms, they look nice. The biceps are a little small, though. And then you get down to the legs, which actually look kind of proper because of those big, chunky hips. Torso looks cool. I do like the hit of orange. It probably should have been blue, but I'm okay with the orange. I know people don't like that orange, but I like it because orange is my favorite color. Underneath the Autobot badge is his Matrix, which is removable. It's not easy to get out Ultra Magnus has a much easier matrix to remove. He does then have these little arm cannons here, which look pretty good. Again, chrome eyes, looking nice. And he has this big old ladder on his back, which is basically a third leg, which isn't bad because it is a bit handy. But if you want, you can make it a weapon by unpegging it like this, rotating the ladder like that, and then I'm going to have to do this off camera and get it over the shoulder because it's way too cramped. Do this with it, which might require a bit of an up here. Again, because this is quite a large thing to do. I recommend just taking his hand and resting it on it, honestly, because it does make it a little more wieldable. Come up to the front. Can't really see it. Fold those out. Right there, everything's falling over. And then, up at the top, there's a bunch of missiles that fold out of the ladder. There's 4 different ones. The missiles are all removable. They're not spring-loaded, unfortunately. And you get his big cannon mode, which is cool. I mean, I'm not going to pose him like it, but I feel like I could pose him like that, which would be cool, you know? I think it's a cool little thing you can do with him. Pretty big, cool weapon, honestly. Pretty nice. Anyway, we're going to revert him back to normal here real quick. Anyway, that is his big cannon. That is that. These little forearm cannons here also quite removable, if you'd like. It's typical little cannon parts. They're hinged. Now we got to talk about the articulation on this guy, which is actually pretty good. Everything's there, surprisingly. Ball jointed head, also a hinge in there. Forward and back the arm, outward at the arm, elbow joint, swivel, hand opens and closes along with that. I know it's out of focus because I hit the camera, but there's that. The waist joint here is there. So it's there. You also have the ab crunch still. Rotation. All the leg articulation remains similar. And then there's still the ankle, even though the legs are locked. So pretty good articulation. Nothing's missing here from this guy. I think he's pretty solid. Not really much missing. And that's him. That is really him. Let's just get to the final thoughts here. So for my final thoughts here on RID Optimus, yeah, he's really good. He's cool. He's the best part of this Haslab set, in my opinion. It's awesome. Again, there's a lot more modes I didn't cover, but if you want to see him, I can do another video just doing the weird forms like the base mode and everything. I think he's good. This thing's great. I've always wanted a guy like this because, again, I have the original, but I've never had the chance to complete it because it's a lot of money to complete the original. Like, a ton of money. And quite honestly, is it worth it to do that? Probably not. I have this guy now. Again, big figure, the size of Siege Jetfire. He's massive. And honestly, the price point is good. But the biggest issue with this one is that whole cracking thing, which we're going to have to talk about as a flaw. It should never do it. I took it apart. The part inside is too big and there's too much friction. I understand why they did it, but this part over here exists. This part down here where my finger's at. They could have just made it loose or semi-loose. They didn't have to make it as tight as they did, and it causes cracking. The first thing I did when I got him out of the box, when I went to transform him to robot mode, I was like, how is that joint? And it is horrible to move. You have to put so much pressure on that to get it to move. I didn't even do it. I just took it apart instantly. Hopefully I don't have it. Again, the screws aren't fully tightened because I left it that way. Because I didn't have a big nail file. I only had a little one on a nail clippers that I could use. But it's just a shame you have to do it. Because again, this is a big ticket item. I paid $400 to get this. $400. Not just for this guy, obviously. Magnus is there too. It's 2 commander classes, which does realistically come out to 300 Canadian plus a deluxe, which is 40. And the extras Haslab. Again, you get the stands and everything too, so it kind of comes out to what it should be, in my opinion, but it's a little more. But again, it's a premium item that's never going to be released again, most likely. So, take that as you will. This is a big ticket item that honestly I wasn't missing out on. It's my first and only Haslab at this point, because I didn't back Leo Kaiser, because I just frankly didn't have the money for Leo Kaiser. I had the money for this guy at the time, so I 100% did it. But I think the figure's great. As a whole, he's a 4 out of 5. That breakage issue is going to knock a point, and there's also the combined arms are a little wimpy, but I like the legs. I like everything about this thing. The head's cool, the chrome eyes, everything's just nice on this guy. It's very premium, other than that, issue. I think he's just really awesome. Again, if you missed him and you want to get him, I don't know if you want to pay them aftermarket prices, because he doubled in price. The cheapest seems like $600. So it's really bad, but he's so worth it in my opinion. Really worth it. But that is essentially it for RID Optimus. Again, we'll have the same day. We're going to do it obviously with Magnus. And that is it for now. See you in the next review.